my name is Melissa Jacquart. I'm an assistant professor here at the University of Cincinnati. I work on philosophy of astrophysics and philosophy of science. I also work on public engagement with science, and particularly what philosophy can offer public engagement with science. So that's my second area of research. And then my third area of research is in philosophy and education. This research sort of spans a whole host of topics. I'm interested in equity in the context of higher education, and I also do a lot of outreach in K-12 settings, especially science classrooms, and I also do philosophy with children and youth outreach as well. The most important philosophical paper to me doesn't actually have to do with my work, but has to do with how I approach doing philosophy. So the paper is Concrete Flowers by Christy Dotson. It's more of a reflective piece that she wrote for Hypatia, which is a feminist journal. And in this paper, she talks about what it means to do philosophy. A lot of the paper talks about how there are sort of these mainstream approaches to doing philosophy, but there are some approaches to philosophy that are a little bit different or don't really fit or go against the main approaches to doing philosophy. And I really like this paper because a lot of my own work doesn't fit neatly into traditional philosophical boxes. I started working on philosophy of astrophysics when there weren't a lot of philosophers really thinking about that. I'm interested in public engagement with science when a lot of philosophers haven't really thought much about what philosophy could look like in that space. And I also do philosophy by working with kids and students. And so I've really found that paper really exciting and kind of relieving because it was somebody else articulating their view about not necessarily seeing their work as fitting into the normal boxes. And it also has this really beautiful metaphor in it about what it's like to see and be a concrete flower in philosophy. So a side interest of mine in philosophy is feminist philosophy. So a lot of feminist philosophy really underwrites my methods and approaches to how I do and engage in philosophy of science, philosophy of education, and public engagement with philosophy. But it's not something I've actively pursued outside of it being part of what my methodology draws on. But I would love to spend more time working on that. A lot of my research in philosophy of public engagement with science really addresses how the public comes to understand or engage with science. So I think a lot of the research that I'm doing in that space is trying to get a better understanding of how people's social or worldviews impact how they engage with science. And so in that sense, I'm hopeful that some of my philosophical work in that space can help us better understand and highlight how to do more effective public engagement with science when we take more seriously people's values and views and world location. One of the things that I think is really special about our department is that our graduate students are able to get master's degrees while they're here. I think it's something that not a lot of other programs or departments able to offer their graduate students. And so I think it's really valuable. A lot of our grad students come into the program with interdisciplinary interests, and wanting to support those interdisciplinary interests is something we're able to do here. UC is a great place for doing your PhD if you have super interdisciplinary interests. Our faculty are really supportive of that. And we are excited to see grad students who want to bring together two areas that maybe haven't been in traditional conversation, or want to look at the intersection of one discipline and another discipline, or use the tools of another discipline to help them do a different kind of philosophy. So I think if you have interdisciplinary interests, we're a great program for supporting those and wanting to figure out how you can bring those two together, even if you aren't sure how. So I think my favorite course in undergrad was our History of Modern Philosophy course, but it was mostly my favorite course because of my TA that I had, Shannon Spalding. And she was really inspiring for me as an undergrad starting to get into philosophy. She really required her undergrads that she was TAing for to like do philosophy in this really rigorous way, but she also made it really accessible and understandable. And so it was particularly memorable because of her and how she was able to explain things so well and gave me the confidence that I could do philosophy just as well as her. So I think that's my favorite undergrad course, but I also greatly loved my grad course in feminist philosophy of science. So that was taught by Kathleen Krulik at the University of Western Ontario. And that was a course I kind of reluctantly took, not wanting to be a female philosophy of science student taking a feminist philosophy class. But I'm glad I did, because it turns out I loved everything about that course, and a lot of the methods and approaches that I learned in that course have really informed how I do philosophy today. I might have been an astrophysicist. So I did my undergrad in astronomy, physics, and philosophy, but I found that the philosophy classes were actually letting me ask all the questions that my astrophysics classes weren't. So I might have done that. I've also always been interested in education, and I had spent some time before grad school working for the US government, so I could have also ended up working for the government in higher education. I think that would have been really fun too. My favorite non-philosophical activity before I had kids was traveling. I really liked traveling. I loved going to different places, and I also absolutely love taking pictures. So I love photography as well. And that was something that allowed me to have those two interests together. I don't have as much time for that now that I have two kids, but when I can't travel, I really just, as cliche as it sounds, enjoy spending time with my family.